Make It Now with Linda Lang. This is the cutest little basket. There's no pattern. I just connected it together. It's a Make It Now project, but it is absolutely adorable. And it has this little pine cone on the top. I actually went outside and found a teeny tiny pine cone that I'm going to use for my lid. And if you open it up, you'll see the inside of the pine cone. Right there. And this is the lid. And this is the inside. And of course I have a couple little things in here. But that's what the inside looks like. It's just the cutest basket. I think I've had this basket for about 20 years. It has held its shape. Now, I know I have this in here. This was just a little bear that I made. And we're going to talk about these later. These are little dough ornaments. It's a little bear, and I had to put the little legs on it again. And I put it in the basket just to remind me to do it, and it's been in there 15 years. This little guy lasts forever. So we're going to make some of these down the road. It's the dough ornament teaching tutorial. But today we are going to make this. The only thing you need is a needle, which I brought two. See, they've got big eyes. Big eyes. One's metal and one's this. I think it's like a yarn one. This is a yarn one too, but look how big that eye is. Ooh. Okay, and then some raffia. Of course, pine needles, which I am going to show you how to prepare now. So it's Make It Now with Linda Lang. So what I did this morning is I went out and picked up a bunch of pine needles off of the ground. We live in the country and so they're everywhere. So I just picked up a box of pine needles. So the first thing is grab your pine needles and we want to boil them. So we're going to cook them on the stove so they're nice and soft. And so now you just get a pot of water and boil it and get it to its simmering boil, and then you add your pine needles. You don't have to wash them because they'll get washed in the water. It's like doing spaghetti. You know, sometimes you break them in half to get it all in, and sometimes you just let the spaghetti kind of cook down and then you push it into the water. It's the same thing with this. Now I'm only doing a handful, and I'll let it dry, and then I'll add some more and do some more. So I just do, I don't know, about 3 pots of this, just to make sure I have enough pine needles for my basket. I let it boil for about 10 minutes, and that's about it. While we're waiting for this to boil and get going, I just wanted to tell you what the supplies are. You need pine needles, raffia, and a darning needle or a big needle that you would use for yarn. And that's it. Okay, now we take the needles. They're very soft. You don't have to do this if your needles are already soft, but you do this if they've been sitting in the sun and they got dried and stiff. You can pour these into a colander and get rid of the water, but I'm going to use the water again for my next batch. So I'm just going to use a spoon and put them onto this sheet that I have right here. So that took it all in one scoop almost. Little pieces here, and then you spread them out. Let everything dry. You don't have to do them individually, just spread them out like that. It'll eventually dry. Matter of fact, working with them like this is good too, just make sure they're not wet. So then I'll do my next batch, and when I come back we'll start assembling our basket. So I grabbed some of my prepared pine needles. They're a little darker because they're still holding moisture, and that's okay even if they're a little wet. It's best not to use them if they're drenching, but they can be a little wet. It's easy to apply. See, they don't break. But if you use them before you cook them, or if they're not wet, they're going to bust up. So you don't want them to break. You want them as long as possible. And I have these long pine needles in my backyard. I think there's even longer ones out there. So get as long as you can. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is get a piece of raffia And if it's a skinny piece, you want to double it up. You want to make it nice and thick. Not real thick. I mean, this is okay, but that's a little too thick. So I'm going to grab this piece. This actually tears off like this. Okay, so you simply grab a piece of raffia. It could be thick, it could be skinny, whatever. Nothing too fancy. And you want to thread the needle. Yep, there you go. We're just going to sew. We're going to sew the basket together. All right, let's make sure I got an end. Yes, I do. Okay, let's move those out of the way. All right, so what you do first is we're going to start with the bottom. We don't want to do the lid yet because we need to fit it. So we're going to start with the bottom. The hardest part is getting it started. Okay, so you grab two, it depends, 2 or 3. I like to grab 2. And you put the 2 heads together like that. Because it's going to look pretty, they're going to stick out on the inside like that. And you want to have them stick out. So then you take this and you get another 2 and you put them down below like this. And what you do is you want to start making your circle. I want it to be a circle, right in the middle. So then you're going to want to curve it in like this. That's why it's got to be moist, wet, cooked, because you're going to be, making a circle. This is the hardest part, is bringing it together in the beginning. And you don't even need to use a needle at this point. You can just kind of start this way and then go underneath those, okay, and go around and then do this. Go underneath, and you start seeing a circle as you take your raffia and hold it in place. Just wrap it around like this. We'll use the needle in a minute, and you go underneath like that. Okay, now since I have a hole here, I'm going to start using my needle. So I'm going to start putting it in here. Like that. Now some of it's sticking out, that's okay. We'll just do it, bring out all that you can and then keep turning in a circle. So you want to make sure as you go, you just keep sewing it in a circle. So now we go to the other side and sew it together. Once you get it started though, it gets easier and easier. It's just this beginning circle. Okay, and then you can stick the needle inside of the other one as well and just sew. Okay, like that. See how it's forming a little bit of a circle? And then we do it some more. But you want to make the circle so where the pine needle stays on the outside. It doesn't go on the bottom. It goes around the edge. And that's when you start making your circle. It's probably easier to just use one piece of raffia at this point because it gets pretty hard at that, doing that circle. Now we want to do it again. We want to go inside an area just to grab a hold of something to sew that raffia around. Okay, and you keep going. It looks kind of oblong right now, but we'll fix that. Now I go around and go back in here again. So like I said, you can do basket weaving, stuff like this, off of the YouTube and learn how to do patterns, but I'm just doing a real quick and dirty way of making a basket. Now you'll notice I'm running out. Okay, you got these little things sticking up here now. Now it's time to add 2 more pine needles, and you put it right on top like that. Okay, wrap it around and then sew it through. And anytime you have these pokey things, you want to cover them. So you take those needles and you put it on top like that, so you don't even see them. Okay, so then this goes in here. And I want to cover these up again. So you just do it as you feel, adding more of these. Do 1 or 2 depending on how big your needles is. And then you just keep going around like that. I keep going around. And around. And around. And see, you can also, with this piece, you can just push it down and put your raffia on top of it, because the next layer will cover it up. And you keep going. So I'm going to add some more. And they won't break or brittle as long as they've been boiled and as long as they're maybe even still wet a little bit. Makes it nice. See, once you get it started, now you can just keep going. Okay, this is the easy part now. It's just now you keep going. But you make sure that these pieces stay on the top. See how the back is? That's okay, that's the bottom. Then we go on the top like this. Keep going around. Now I'm getting down to not having enough raffia, okay? So I'll show you what you do there. So what you do is, see, you have a loop of that raffia and you just put your needle through it and it makes a knot, okay? And then you just kind of go through the back through, and you can cut off the raffia. So now it stays secure. This is the hardest part of the whole thing. We're going to do the same thing with the lid as well. On this, you'll notice, because these pine needles were not as thick as these, see how I did 3? I did 3 in each. This one I'm doing 2 because look how fat these are. I guess because they're still wet. So maybe you need to let them really dry before you do it, but then they're not pliable. So it's up to you. So now I'm going to get some more raffia. This time I'm just going to use 1 fat strand. All right. So now I'm ready to add more pine needles. These are actually pretty thick. Look how fat. That's got 3 on it and it's thick. So again, it depends on what kind of needles you have. This one is pretty cool, but it doesn't have a lot on it, so I'm going to use that. And I kind of stagger it. If you'll see that I kind of stagger it a little bit, bring it around, make sure that those are on top, bring it around, and sew it in. And keep going, go around, and sew it in. It gets easier when the thing gets bigger. Go around and sew it in. This is when you can even start making designs if you want. I just keep going, make a, it just makes this nice little round design. It's not a huge design. It's not back and forth. It's not weaved. It's just sewn together. Okay, so I have got the base, the bottom of my basket. You see it's about the same size as this one. Now we start building the walls. In other words, what you do is you simply start building up around. Instead of going flat, you start bringing it up. So I'm going to start. See how I already started bringing this one up from the last one? I just brought it up a little higher. So I'm going to stick my needle through here, get it started because I had to get some more raffia. I'm going to put this around here and put this around here so that it ties it right in, and then put my needle through here to hold that in place. Okay, so now I can tuck this in, but I'm going to do it one more time just to make sure it's secure. Okay, now I can cut this little piece off. But be careful not to cut into the raffia that you're sewing. Okay. Okay, so now we start building. So now we take 2 of these and set it on top. Just keep going around as you did before, but just set it on top. And add as you want to see more of those ends show on the inside. Because remember, this is on the inside. So I have gotten this high and the same size as this one. And of course this one's a little browner, can you tell? Because it's drier. This one I'm doing it just a little bit wet. Anyway, so I've got this little bit hanging out and I'm going to finish this off. And let me show you how you do that. I had to get another piece, of course. So just to reiterate on how we do the end, you just stick it from the inside and go out anywhere into that second row down. Go just a little bit here, and then bring this back around and go back where that one is next to it, and then bring it again so that it catches it. So that's how you finish off an end. Like that. And then this little piece you can cut off. Okay. Now I did want to talk to you about the needles. Now I did tell you to use a yarn needle or whatever, but I found out that if you use a yarn needle, it's not as sharp as a metal yarn needle. It goes through better. This one will, won't go through as good. So just wanted to let you know. And so now we can get started and finish this off. All I'm going to do is take the rest of this and wrap it around. So let me finish this. Okay. Now there's a little bit stuck out like this. Because I don't want to get poked with them, I'll just cut them off. Okay. And then I'll just bring this in one more time. Just to finish that end off. And there's my little basket bottom. And now I just wrap around again so that I can tie it off. Loop it through to make a slip knot. Tighten it good. Go back through the outside to the inside. And then cut that off in the middle and on the inside. I have a couple of wild hairs growing on the outside, so I'm just cutting them off. There you go. Okay, this is my basket. This is a baby basket. Okay, so now we are getting ready. And what you do, because this is still a little wet, you can mold it. You can make sure it's shaped nice. So I just kind of shape it with my hands to make sure it forms a perfect circle on the top. Like that. And I'll set that aside and let that dry. Okay, so now what we're going to do is the lid. Okay, I wanted to show you, I went out to the garden and looked around for some pine cones. This is a good sized pine cone, like this one. but it's not dry. And if I try to use it, it's going to fall apart. And for the sake of the video, I'm going to use a stick. It's the same process, and I can use it to put the lid up and down. But I'm going to let these pine cones dry so I can make other baskets down the road. But I'm going to use this stick in place of this. Okay? So, bug. Got a bug from outside. Well, that's what happens when you go outside. You bring bugs in. Okay. So now what you want to do is start wrapping around the stick. How high you want it. I want the top part to be big because then I can have this little part be inside the basket. So I'm just going to wrap it around like that a couple times. Put my needle and my raffia up inside. You can actually put it down and then wrap around it. Of course, you can do that too. And then do it again so that it holds it in place. See, like that. Do it again. Okay, so that's in place, right? Now you take the rest of the needles and you keep going around as well. And then go ahead and bring your needle down to catch that pine needle. Make sure it's nice and tight because you don't want this little circle thing to fall out. So now we've got it going, okay? So then I take two other pine needles, and you're going to start building out. Just like you did building up, you're going to start building out. So you're not going to go down on each side of the stick. You're going to go straight out on top of each other. Okay? Again, the first part is always the hardest to do. But once you get it started, easy peasy. Get that hanging out of the way. That was in my way. Okay, so I'm going to come down somewhere inside there. Make sure it catches that piece, and then I just build from there on the outside. Again, that first one is always a little harder, but once you start adding on to it, it makes it a little easier. And then just twist it around. Keep going around. Now at the end, if you want to use a little hot glue to secure it, you can do that as well. Of course, I didn't have hot glue back in the covered wagon days, so it is what it is. Okay, and this goes like that. Make sure it's tight in there. I noticed something about this though. This thing wants to come out. You know what? I'm going to let it. I'm going to let it come out, and I'm going to continue my circle. It'd be so much easier to do it without that thing in the middle. And then I'll shove it in there when I get done and maybe use some hot glue to secure it. We got modern tools. Why not use them? So I have got this lid done. It matches the top perfectly like this, okay? But it kind of loosey-goosey's on there. So what you do is you put a little bit of a lip so that it stays inside the basket. Okay, so I want to finish this off. So I'm just going to finish this piece off the best that I can. And make sure those pokey things are not poking anywhere. Like I said, I don't have patterns. I don't do patterns. I just sew. And it looks adorable. It looks Indian. So let's get this down here. And I still have a little bit of this left, so I'm not going to tie it off. I'm going to actually utilize it. So I'm going to put my needle back in the middle, right about in here. And then I'm going to add a couple of these, just one row, just one layer, just enough to make a little bit of a lift so that it'll be that's going to catch on side in the inside. So I just want to make sure that my lid, it goes all the way around. So I like it like that. So I'm going to sew this on this inside. Just going to go sew down and up and down and up. I'm just going to make a little edge using one row. I'm not going to do 2 rows. I'm only going to do 1 row. Just enough to make a little edge. As closest to the edge as possible, because this lid needs to fit inside the basket. I'll add another piece. I'm doing 2 though. I'm still doing 2 of these. Kind of making the shape, the circle shape around the edge of the lid. So it has a little bit of a lift. Okay, so I'm going to keep going around on the inside. And of course, I've got to go down and up again because I ran out of raffia. I go up and down until it's pretty tight. And then do that. Make sure it's in there good. Bring this around. I'm hoping and praying that this that I'm doing is going to sit inside the basket. That's why I like to make the basket lid a little bit bigger so that I can do this trim on the inside. Okay, look at that's pretty cool. Look how that's looking. See how that's up like that? I'm going to tie this off. Go in and out a few times. And it'll stay. Just cut it. Cut off any wild hairs. All right, so this is our lid. It goes right on here, like that. And then you take the stick that I started with and shove it in there. There's my basket. And so that's how you make a basket with pine needles. And I'm telling you, I haven't made it one in 20 years. And so I haven't practiced. So this was a practice one. But as you keep doing it, you get better and you get better and you get better. And again, use a pine cone to put in here instead of a stick. But I'm just going to use a stick for now. And it's in there. It's not going anywhere. That's cute. I think that's cute with a stick in it. Okay. This is Make It Now with Linda Lang. And again, this is the basket that we were supposed to make but it turned out like this one. That's all right. I think they're pretty cute. Until next time, have a good day.